Here I am gluing up a neck blank made of 3 pieces of mahogany and 2 pieces of flame maple. I use a dowel to index my laminates so that they go together easily and don't slide around under clamping pressure. Here I'm routing for the truss rod channel and the carbon fiber reinforcement rods. This is a scary step where I cut out the neck shape on the bandsaw. Just go slow and steady. This is a neck through, so I have to cut the neck break angle into the neck right here. Here I'm cutting the taper. Cutting and shaping the headstock on the bandsaw and the spindle sander can be kind of scary, but you can get pretty good results out of it. So here we get ready to bind the headstock. I used multi-laminate binding for the first time on a headstock, and a new binding glue I haven't tried before. It's really messy. Here I'm locating and drilling for the tuner holes using a backer board to ensure I don't have any blowout. Drilling the access for the truss rod can be very scary, but if you're careful, it goes okay. Cutting my Richlite fretboard to the right length. Center lines are critical when building a guitar. Everything is based off the center line. From that center line, I can index the fretboard onto the neck with a pair of toothpicks, and that'll make gluing up far easier in the future. I can trim the fretboard to the right taper after that. I've started using carbon rods in my guitar necks, and I just have to cut them to the right length, and they fit nicely in the slots that I routed when I routed for the truss rod channel. Because this is Richlite, I'll be using a 2-part epoxy, so masking the truss rod is essential. The eagle-eyed amongst you might notice that I forget the clamping call when I glue this up. That was a mistake, but it ended up working out fine. You can see the indexing pins working fine there too. I just chisel away the excess glue. That makes routing for binding a little easier, which is what I'm doing right now. Radiusing Richlite takes quite a long time, so it's conveniently shown in a time lapse here. After that, I make sure all my fret slots are the right depth. The next step would be binding. After the fretboard is bound, it's very hard to recut the fret slots. I use a special binding glue and acetone to make sure the binding is properly adhered to the Richlite and the mahogany. Here I'm locating and drilling for the mother of pearl fret dots that I use. They're just super glued into some holes, drilled with a 1/4-inch Forstner bit. After I glue on the end of the binding, it gets another quick pass with the radiusing beam, and then I carve the neck. Carving the neck and the volute was probably one of my favorite parts of this build. Working with mahogany is very pleasant. Now we take the fretboard up to the final sanding grits and we polish it up with different sandpaper and micro mesh. Here you can see how rich light polishes up. It gets very shiny. Now it's time to install frets. I pre-bend the wire, cut it to the right length, nip off the tang, and hammer it in. Then all you have to do is trim the excess and sand the ends nice and flat. I use lumen lay side dots. It's very easy just to drill a 3mm hole and install the side dot material with some super glue. I used the mahogany for the body. This is a clip of the body wings being glued up and then run through my thickness sander. Yes, my shop is a mess. The mahogany wings are then glued onto the neck. And I use a lot of clamps and boards to make sure that they glue up flat. Now I get to cut the body out on my bandsaw, and then afterward it is refined with a template and a router. The control layout for this guitar is a switch, 2 volumes, and then a tone pot, which is a push-pull. Pre-drilling your cavities before routing them out helps you not burn out your router in the process, and also means you just have less work to do. Routing for the control cavity is a very large step. It's a really big cavity and it throws dust everywhere. This one came out particularly great. The pickup cavities are pretty much the same process. Hand carving bevels on a guitar can be quite challenging because you have to deal with a lot of straight lines. Locating for a bridge is never easy. But here I pre-drilled a hole with my hand drill, and then I went over the drill press to make sure my bit didn't wander any. After this I get to install the ground wire and hammer in some inserts. Before paint, guitars get a lot of sanding. Most of it's been edited out because frankly no one wants to watch all that. It can be quite repetitive and tedious. The next step is it enters the paint booth for sealer coats. It's tricky to film in the paint booth due to overspray, so here's a few pictures of the guitar making its way through the paint process. Here I can be seen applying the logos. They're made by SoCal Logos out in California. I highly recommend them. This logo says that it is proudly crafted in Dayton, Ohio. I painted the bevels a contrasting color on this guitar, and masking this up took about 2 hours. serialized as the first guitar of 2021. Fretwork takes forever, but it's very worth it to do it right. Here I round over the ends, make it very comfortable. Afterwards, I will level the fretboard, make sure that everything rings out nice and clear. Nicely crowned and polished frets make all the difference in a good feeling fretboard. This is the first time I polished frets with a Dremel, and I'm very happy with the results. Next up, the finish gets wet sanded, nice and flat, and then it gets buffed to a high gloss finish. After this, the guitar comes together pretty quickly. I put the tuners in, I install a wiring harness that I wired up earlier. At this point, I set the nut on the guitar because I will use 2 strings to line up how I mount the pickups. The pickups are bare knuckle juggernauts, they sound incredible. After the pickups are mounted, we solder them in, and we put on the knobs. The nut slots get cut to the right depth for nice playing action, and then it gets filed down to the right comfortable shape and polished to a nice sheen. I made my truss rod cover out of a piece of ebony laminated with maple for strength. The last piece of the puzzle is the back plate. Once that's on, the guitar is pretty much complete.